earth shakes when the bombs scream until our last breath, every heartbeat. When you found me too much, now I'm swallowed. Now I'm the fool while you're breaking rules. Dangerous path that I follow. Oh, go on, just do what you do. And it hurts as I bleed for you, cry for you. Oh, oh. Let me bleed as I bleed for you, cry for you. Oh, oh. Let me bleed. Let me bleed. Let me. All of the pain seems to follow like a shadow, dark and cold to the touch. Am I insane not to let go? Oh, go on, just do what you do. And it hurts as I bleed for you, cry for you. Oh, oh. Let me bleed.
can't fall asleep when you're counting stars. Get it together. Your mind can't sleep when you let it serve. But now you wanna see me fall. From a quarter mile, I can see you at the call. Think about it, ring won't tell you what I saw. When you break it off, you'll see who had it all. You had it all. You said you wanted to fall into oblivion. Forget about the world we're living in. Fall into oblivion, I'm going in. Into oblivion. Into oblivion. Forget about the world we're living in. Fall into oblivion, I'm going in.
So the race could well be interrupted. Will that play into Red Bull's hands? Will it work against them? Let's see. But I'm imagining Max Verstappen will be very, very keen to get. Damn dear on the brakes into the hairpins if Max Verstappen's going to get past a Mercedes tonight.
Pirelli say the best way to run this race is to put on the medium tyre and then go on to the hard compound tyre, and that's what the majority of the grid are doing. Only Lando Norris starts on the soft compound tyre. Will that give him extra grip right at the start? Ricciardo on the hard compound tyre, as is Carlos Sainz for Ferrari and Sebastian Vettel also for Aston Martin. But when it comes to tyres, we've seen the Red Bull light up the tyres a lot quicker than Mercedes so far this weekend.
Absolutely right. And what we've also seen from the Formula 2 races are that down into the first corner, if you're on the inside, their left-hand side of the grid is pretty slippery and dusty and not too difficult to sort of lock a brake and struggle to get the car slowed down and turned in. There are the drones up in the sky, the big countdown there. And away we go for the formation lap.
Yep, it's not exactly lights out and away we go just yet, just the formation lap. What Lewis Hamilton will want is not to be spending too much time stationary on the grid by the time he's completed the 3.8 miles of that formation lap. But the longer he spends on the grid, the more those tyres will cool off, and could that give Red Bull just a little advantage at the start? And that start, 220 metres down into turn one, we have seen incidents, we've seen accidents in all of the F2 races, the support series to Formula One. Théo Pourchaire and the young Fittipaldi being taken to hospital after quite a severe crash in the F2 race preceding this. We hope they're going to be okay. No news yet of their condition, but they've both been checked over and taken to the local hospital. It seems to me, Martin, it's a narrow track. It's not a lot of time to sort things out before you get into turn one. We might get another accident tonight.
Well, we'll wait and see. Let's hope not. But you can see just how long and elongated the circuit is down on the Corniche, down beside the Red Sea. It is the second longest circuit on the F1 calendar after Spa. And therefore, that's why it's so long, why it's got so many corners. F1 cars are flat out through a lot of them. They don't really recognise them as corners. But there are some key areas. The two Mercedes took off from the front of the grid, really wanting to get some pace and some temperature, and Max Verstappen less interested in that. It seems he sort of left a bit of a gap to them, and they want to stretch it out, and they want to get round with some temperature and get the pack as quickly as possible on the grid behind them. They're great views there. They're going to wear clear visors with a few tear-offs on them. If they get dirt or tyre rubber or whatever, they can tear those off during the Grand Prix. Of course, you've got to make sure you don't get those in your own airbox or your own brake ducts or radiator ducts, for example. And of course, we have had incidents where they get into the rear wing slots or indeed the radiator ducts of cars behind them.
So in the last four races, 2 wins apiece for Max Verstappen and for Lewis Hamilton, who hasn't won 3 in a row throughout 2021. There's the Drivers' Championship standings. There's an 8-point lead for Max Verstappen. Last time he led the championship by 8 points was going into the Hungarian Grand Prix. At the end of that race, Lewis Hamilton led by 8 points come the checkered flag. So far this season, Verstappen and Hamilton have had 12 1-2 finishes between them, involving both drivers. Max has won 6, Lewis has won 6. Whatever happens between now and the checkered flag in Abu Dhabi for the final race, these two have taken each other into a different plane.
You win a World Championship over a season, not over a corner or one race. But somehow, when you get down to the final stages of a championship, especially like this one, the tension seems all that much higher, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad we've got headset microphones. My hand's not steady tonight. I'm tense about this. I'm nervous about this because, as Martin rightly says, we are getting right down to the serious business end of the season. And Red Bull have taken the fight to Mercedes. They have that lead in the Drivers' Championship. Mercedes have that lead in the Constructors' Championship. What will happen at the end of this race?
As always, Max really maxing out his start box there, right in the front of it. Lewis less so. There are 8 metres between the cars, so that means that in third place, Verstappen starts 16 metres, just over 3 car lengths behind his championship rival.
And there's the Aston Martin medical car pulling into its slot behind the Hasses. We are all lined up here. 5 times the championship lead has changed this season. What will happen now as it's lights out and away we go? Bottas gets a decent start, as does Hamilton. Verstappen can't dive down the inside. Leclerc's keeping him company as Hamilton takes the lead into the first corner from Valtteri Bottas. There's Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc going wheel to wheel as they go round turn 2. But it's Hamilton from Bottas from Verstappen, then the Ferrari of Leclerc, then comes Perez, and behind them, Lando Norris ahead of Pierre Gasly.
Perez got so close to running into the back of his teammate. Max Verstappen had a lockup, was desperate to try to get around the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Didn't make that happen, but he would have been terrified as he was heading towards the back of the sister Red Bull there.
It is certainly the start that Lewis Hamilton wanted. He has the lead of this race. Further behind, there's Antonio Giovinazzi fending off the fast-starting Fernando Alonso as round the banked corner at turn 13 we go. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton further up the road, stretching away from Bottas and then Verstappen, who's got to stick with the 2 Mercedes. And there is Yuki Tsunoda and Fernando Alonso going wheel to wheel as Tsunoda backs out and almost collides with the Alpine.
Perfect start for Mercedes-Benz then. They've got control of the race at this stage. That's important for them. And look at Lewis Hamilton already stretching a bit of a lead out there. But Max Verstappen gamely hanging on. He's got some work to do tonight.
So Tsunoda has lost places and dropped down to 12th so far. Norris has made up a place, Ocon 2 places. Daniel Ricciardo's made up 2 places. Fernando Alonso a couple as well, and both Vettel and Stroll making up places right at the start as we head towards the final corner. And then down the inside goes Carlos Sainz on Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo. That was bold from Carlos Sainz, and now a slipstream for Kimi Raikkonen as down the main straight we come. But it's the Ferrari ahead of the Alfa Romeo as Pierre Gasly under pressure from Daniel Ricciardo going into turn 1. Ricciardo just has to back out of that move as Sainz keeps Raikkonen at bay, but only just.
Yeah, Kenny got a little bit hot on the brakes, didn't he, and lost time. If you don't get the first corner right, you're out of sync for turns 2 and 3 as well. So Sainz then beginning to make his way through from his 15th starting position. He's got a car much faster than that underneath him, and he's also on a 13-run Grand Prix of scoring World Championship points is Carlos Sainz, but again, he's got a lot of work to do from there. So it just calms down a little bit now and just stretches out as we look down the pack, and they've got to find out. Of course, there is no data at all, really, for how to run a Grand Prix at this circuit, and even their longer runs on Friday were curtailed by the accident of Charles Leclerc in free practice 2. They lost a good 5 minutes of running, critical running in race conditions.
George Russell lost places, started 14th on the grid, now running down in 17th. He might have come quite close to Lance Stroll in turn 7. The stewards have noted that particular incident. Doesn't mean they're investigating, not yet, as Lewis Hamilton then out in front, trying to stretch his lead over Valtteri Bottas, which was 1 second at the end of the first lap, and that 1 second margin always important, because if you're within 1 second of the car in front, you get the use of DRS and an extra kilometres an hour of top speed down the straight. He's just outside any DRS zone at the moment, Valtteri Bottas, by a couple of hundreds.
Now, Red Bull could do with Perez really in support of Verstappen, so they've got some options with strategy. While he's tucked up behind the Ferrari, he's already 5 seconds off the lead. They really need Perez, and I think that's why he pushed so hard into the first corner. Leclerc was looking up the inside momentarily, braked quite early, and there was the lock-up from Perez heading towards the back of his teammate. But Leclerc then slow in, fast out, and holds 4th position, and that's critical for Red Bull. It was a nice start from Verstappen, but the Mercedes were perfectly away, and great formation as well. Max sensibly realising there's no point in trying to go around the outside. He'll just be wrong-footed through the exit. And this then is really touching as well. Wheels touching further back through the pack.
That was Tsunoda and Ocon. We're on board with Ocon right now.
That's it.
Wheels touching floor. Ocon in the Alpine into the Alpha Tauri. Lando Norris made a decent start with those soft tyres. We're on board now with Lance Stroll. That's his teammate Sebastian Vettel slipping through on the inside. George Russell to his left now, and they definitely contact there as Stroll had to take avoiding action and go off the track.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz across the runoff of between turns 1 and 2 as well. But Hamilton then leads, and I noticed on the previous lap Verstappen just moving out of the slipstream of the Mercedes, not wanting to overheat his car. And yeah, the race has just settled down, but looking really handy, isn't it? Mercedes totally in control of this Grand Prix, as I said.
I think they've got their tyres switched on now because they're starting just to stretch away a little bit more, and Hamilton pulling away from his teammate Valtteri Bottas. 1.5 seconds is the gap. Further back down, Carlos Sainz now running in 12th place ahead of Yuki Tsunoda. George Russell and Lance Stroll swapping positions and having a right old ding-dong battle for 16th place. No investigation necessary in the stewards' minds for that incident where they made contact at turn 7 on the first lap. So nothing doing in the stewards' room, and confirmation from race control.
Yeah, I think obviously they do apply different sort of filters, don't they, to the opening lap, and we'll consider that a first lap skirmish.
On board then with Carlos Sainz, and I mentioned moments ago he got past Yuki Tsunoda, the Ferrari, having a lot more top speed down the straight than the Alpha Tauri, and that was a fairly easy move with DRS assistance going into that first corner. At the start.
Good job. Good job.
Valtteri Bottas did a very good thing for his teammate Lewis Hamilton by covering off that inside, not allowing Max Verstappen to get down the inside, which maybe would have been the natural place to try and overtake.
Well, of course, they learned the painful way, didn't they, back in Mexico, when they were so busy covering the middle and the right of the track. Max went sailing down the outside, took the lead and won the Grand Prix.
Perez all over Charles Leclerc in the battle for fourth place at the moment. Valtteri Bottas takes the new fastest lap of the race, and don't forget you get an extra point for that. That might be crucial come the end of the season. Ted Kravitz, down to you.
So quiet pit lane at the moment, not too well, about 20 laps we're seeing of the first people to pit, maybe of the soft tyre a bit earlier. Lando Norris might be the first one because he's starting to drop away quite considerably on those soft tyres from Sergio Perez. Not really being caught from behind by Esteban Ocon, but holding his own in P6. And bad news for Pierre Gasly, P8. He's being told he's got very hot brakes. He needs to cool his brakes on the AlphaTauri.
Because it might be 20 to 9 at night here, but it is a very warm, humid evening on the shores of the Red Sea. At a Corniche circuit, where Hamilton's got that 1.6 second lead now. We've said this before, Martin. Does he need to keep Valtteri Bottas a little closer to him, giving Bottas the use of DRS to try and propel both of them a little further away from Max Verstappen?
To an extent, but I think they'll be a little bit nervous at this stage with full tanks of fuel, of overheating motors, overheating brakes in particular, until they burn some of their maximum 110 kilograms of fuel off. But it is muggy out there, 76% humidity, and it felt completely different, I have to say, tonight on the grid to any other time we've been here through this last few days.
It does feel like a much hotter day. Right, we're on lap 6 and we haven't been to Sky Race Control yet. Let's put that right. Paul di Resta, good evening.
Evening, Crofty. Not much chat on the radio. Max Verstappen been told he's got a bit more scope with the brake balance, but what Bottas has asked for is a bit more gap in front. He's obviously feeling like if he needs to apply Max is going to apply the pressure. He wants a bit more gap from him to Lewis.
Here comes Antonio Giovinazzi in 11th place. He's behind Fernando Alonso, who goes very deep there into turn 1. Stays ahead of Giovinazzi by using the runoff area. Kept him ahead quite nicely.
Yeah, I wonder if the stewards will be looking at that. Well, they will be looking at it, but I think Fernando quite sensibly, because he's usually got his brain switched on at all times, backed off a little bit, make sure the gap wasn't too big. But he used the runoff area to fail to lose a place.
Yeah, didn't want to flat spot his tyres.
Let us know if you're not happy with Lewis' pace and you think you're under threat.
Could do with a bit more gap in front.
Yeah, in other words, I don't want to be driving along in the turbulent air of Lewis. If he's got some pace, get on with it and let's stretch this out a bit.
The thing is, Mercedes don't want him driving along in turbulent air. They don't want anything that might force an early pit stop, maybe, for Valtteri Bottas, because at the moment, for Mercedes and for Lewis Hamilton, this is the perfect starting scenario, isn't it? 8 points the difference going into this race in the championship battle. Well, there's 10 points between Hamilton and Verstappen at the moment, plus the extra point for that fastest lap. So he would have a comfortable advantage over Max Verstappen, well, as comfortable as you can get in this championship race in 2021, if things stay as they are. So Mercedes will want Bottas very much in play. I don't want him to be suffering with any degradation, unnecessary degradation on those tyres. Fernando Alonso then finds a different route, as we saw going through turn 1, and that's Pierre Gasly under attack from Daniel Ricciardo, and behind Antonio Giovinazzi putting some pressure once again on Fernando Alonso and getting past Fernando Alonso as Ricciardo almost pushing along Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, and Alonso's lost a place to the Alfa Romeo. He might lose a place to the Ferrari here because Sainz is quickly on the scene as well.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz catching his hero, of course, Fernando Alonso, from when he was a kid. The two Spaniards going at it now, and the Alpine looking a bit tail happy through there, it must be said. Fernando Alonso is struggling a bit for pace at the moment. So the drag reduction system does work down the pit straight if you're close enough. And already we saw, again, Sainz trying to get out of the dirty air.
This is the incident that got Antonio Giovinazzi past Fernando.
Good job, Antonio.
Great move.
It was a nice move.
Need to get up early in the morning to go around the outside of Fernando Alonso.
and making a very nice move indeed in what is his penultimate race in Formula One for the time being. We'll lose him to Formula E for next season as Guan Yu Zhou joins the Alfa Romeo team, and Valtteri Bottas moves from Mercedes to Alfa Romeo to replace Kimi Raikkonen, who's going to put his feet up on a Sunday and maybe watch the Formula One. He hasn't quite confirmed it yet. I did like the one word he gave you on the grid tonight. Economical with his language as ever.
I didn't even hear it. Can I have a quick word? Yes, and that was it. I think that's what he said. That was my word.
That was it. Here comes the McLaren on the AlphaTauri. Daniel Ricciardo powering with DRS down that main straight, and he's got that move done long before the braking zone into turn one. Carlos Sainz is going to have a go at his hero then. Down here inside goes Carlos Sainz, keeps the Ferrari under control. That was very neat as well. Two moves, one corner, and Fernando Alonso getting past, and they're getting bypassed, I should say, and Daniel Ricciardo getting past Pierre Gasly.
And Carlos on the hard compound tyres as well, so he can go a long way into this race. He said on the grid, didn't he, when I asked him, you know, is it play the long game or push a bit? And he meant both. So, but it certainly looks like the long game on those tyres. And he's pushing nicely.
He's pushing very nicely indeed, as was Daniel Ricciardo trying to get into the points after a few pointless races for the Australian of late. His move, a little simpler than Carlos Sainz's.
Yeah, I don't think Fernando fought that too hard. I think he realised the pace of the Ferrari, and as we said, Sainz is out of position really for the potential of his car. I think Fernando realised that that's not his race this evening.
Ricciardo pointless in the last three races, and in 4 of the last 5. Carlos Sainz, by the way, we say longest active scoring streak on the grid. It is 13 races in a row. He's failed to reach Q3 in 5 of those. Add 1 for this weekend, that's 6. And Sainz on the fringes of the points at the moment in 11th place. Ted, down to you.
But Fernando Alonso is fighting some gremlins in that car, I can tell you, Crofty. On the radio, he's saying he's struggling with the hybrid system, with the deployment of the electric charge through his rear axle. So that's one thing. The DRS wasn't working for him a few laps ago, but I think that's fixed itself. So Alonso not entirely happy, and it's under attack now from the AlphaTauri. Just quick one on Lewis Hamilton. He's got the message from his team. They asked him just to up the pace by a tenth or two, just to help out Bottas with Verstappen behind Bottas.
That's why on lap 8 he set the new fastest lap of the race, and he's continuing to push here on lap 9 as well. 2.5 seconds the lead between Hamilton and Bottas, with Verstappen, well, just on the fringes of getting some DRS assistance behind Valtteri Bottas, but he'll bide his time, I'm sure, and strike when he feels the moment is right. But the top 3 already pulling away quite nicely from Charles Leclerc, running in 4th. Leclerc pulling away from Perez, who was fighting him in the early stages, but has had to drop back just a little bit.
Max Verstappen doing 2 personal bests on this lap. I think he's comfortably able to stay in touch with the Mercedes. And how much is that going to cost him? That little mistake on the way into the final corner yesterday. It was Hero Zero stuff, wasn't it, in terms of a glorious pole or a difficult 3rd place?
Well, he would have been on pole, and it was a super flying lap, but as Ant said at the Sky Pad, to finish first you have to finish, and he didn't get to the line after brushing with the concrete. They've not replaced the gearbox. They think everything is okay, and so far so good, as Giovinazzi keeps ahead of Sainz, but for how much longer? And that is Mick Schumacher into the barrier at the infamous now turn 21-22 complex. We saw Charles Leclerc there in practice. Mick Schumacher has gone into the barriers now. We've got our first safety car of the evening.
Are you okay, Mick? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. Sorry about that.
That's gone in quite hard, Martin, but it's difficult not to go in hard on this fast circuit.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers there of the barrier, thankfully, and they give quite a lot. So do you pit then? Do you pit at the moment if you're Mercedes or Red Bull?
Well, Stroll and Russell already have, because they were in a very good position to come into the pit straight away. Lewis Hamilton is just coming through turn 19 at the moment. Bottas ahead of Verstappen. Mercedes have the chance of a double stack because there is enough of a gap between Hamilton and Bottas, but it's a good question. It's right on the fringes of going onto the hard tyre and it lasting for the rest of the race.
Absolutely, and that'll be a long time clearing up as well. But you can't afford to leave your pit stop later into the safety car period.
So we are going to box.
There's the answer onto the Haas, which may well go to the end of the Grand Prix. So this, I think, plays into Mercedes' hands again in that respect. But Lewis then scampering off out front, and the Valtteri Bottas is, you're not allowed to slow down too much and hold up your rivals. Red Bull will be chewing about that.
I think Max Verstappen is going to stay out here as Hamilton comes into the pits. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, so we've already had some action in here. George Russell has overtaken Lance Stroll in the pits. So that's a nice stop. With the medium tyres, it's a little bit too early, but those hard tyres, nice stop from Mercedes. Those hard tyres could now go to the end, but it's a bit of a push. I think they're also thinking, Mercedes, that there might be another one of these safety cars. The Ferrari comes in. Valtteri Bottas follows his team leader into the pits as well. And there is the Red Bull of Sergio Perez. So Max Verstappen has taken track position. That's very good. I'm expecting Lando Norris into the pits. You see him now, Crofty.
Yeah, he was on the soft tyre. A bit of a no-brainer for Lando Norris to come in. But this is, well, for Red Bull, do the opposite of what Mercedes do. Verstappen stays out and takes the lead of this race. Hamilton and Bottas pit. Are Red Bull gambling here on another safety car where Verstappen could come in and get a cheap pit stop again but hold on to the lead? Or could they get caught out? We'll only find out at the end of lap 50.
Yeah, gambling is the right word, isn't it? In terms of course, you don't know what incidents they're going to be. There's a very good chance there'll be some kind of virtual safety car or actual safety car later on. And we call it a cheap pit stop because you pit, you're in the pit lane while your rivals are going much slower than normal, of course. So it costs you, the pain is about half. What can you tell us, Paul?
I can't tell you anything, but the only thing I'm going to throw back at you, what you're talking about, is at the last race when people try to do this long stint, this is a fast track. You start taking the gauge out the tyre, there's construction concern, I would say.
2 seconds, Paul.
Valtteri's driving massively off the pace.
I agree, it's absolute.
That shouldn't be allowed, what he does.
Right, so
it's not allowed. It's absolutely not allowed under the regulations. You can't do that.
And he's doing that to allow Mercedes the chance for the double stack to service both Lewis and Valtteri comfortably during their pit stop. But he was, he was a lot further behind Lewis Hamilton when he came into the pit lane than he was when the safety car first came out. What the stewards now have to decide, Martin, is did he go too slowly? That is how Mick Schumacher ended up into the barriers.
Yeah, it's very like Charles Leclerc, isn't it? In the back end, stepped out on the way into 22. And I'm afraid you're straight into a cul-de-sac at that point, and you can see how well it absorbed it all.
Thick layers of Tech Pro barrier to the right-hand side. You've also got 6 layers of tyres to help absorb the energy of a Formula One car arriving into turn 22 at around about 155 miles an hour.
Can the safety car go faster? We're driving 100.
Safety car probably can't go much faster, and I'm sure Bernd Maylander is more than capable of doing so, but he's not in a Formula One car, he's in an Aston Martin Vantage for the course of this weekend. You can see it with a little respray of the paint as well.